We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Tie grey, shirt white, makeup mahogany brown. Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In the big question, will cameras in court improve justice? Also, was the Wagatha Christie trial a waste of valuable court time? We'll debate that with former Prisons Minister and former Home Secretary, Shadow Home Secretary Anne Widdecombe, ex-lawyer and UKIP leader Neil Hamilton, and top defence lawyer Jade Gambrill. Anne Widdecombe will stick around to join me reacting with my panel to Rishi Sunak's latest TV interview tonight on Channel 4. Is Sunak still in the race for number 10? In the news agenda with my panel, should strip clubs be banned? And is it time to build on the green belt? And in my big opinion, the unions don't just want a pay rise, they want to bring down the government. I'll see you after the headlines and a busy 2 hours with Polly Middlehurst.
Mark, thank you. Good evening. The top story on GB News tonight, Conservative leadership candidate Rishi Sunak is addressing his new vision for the UK. In a heated exchange, though, with journalist Andrew Neil, the former Chancellor was questioned about the economy, the rise in national insurance and the government's Rwanda policy. Mr Sunak also defended his plans to cut VAT on energy bills, which has been described as a U-turn.
If I become Prime Minister at the beginning of September and energy bills go up in October, there is no time to design something else that would be a more perfect way of helping people. You've got to work with what you've got. And actually, VAT is it is a blunt instrument. I stick by what I said.
No, you said it disproportionately benefits the wealthy.
And it does, but it provides support to everybody. And if you've got 4 weeks after becoming Prime Minister to put in place a policy that will help 30 million households, this is pretty much the only lever left.
Rishi Sunak, well, his opponent Liz Truss says she's not complacent about her chances of winning after getting Ben Wallace's backing. The Defence Secretary's endorsement is expected to give her campaign a major boost. It comes after the first official hustings with Conservative Party members in Leeds last night. Now, news away from politics. More than 4,000 victims of a decades-long contaminated blood scandal could get compensation. The inquiry judge is recommending that each of them should receive at least £100,000 and without delay. At least 2,400 people died after they were infected with HIV or hepatitis C through NHS treatments in the 1970s and 80s. Spain is reporting its first monkeypox-related death. It's believed to be Europe's first death from the disease. Only 5 deaths have been reported worldwide. Last weekend, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency. And lastly, do you remember when Hollywood star Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars last March? Well, Will Smith slapped Chris for making a joke about his wife's hair loss, and now, after months of what he's describing as personal work, he's finally apologised in a video on social media while answering a series of fans' questions. The first question was, why didn't he apologise to Rock in his acceptance speech?
I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Will Smith saying sorry. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time to go back to Mark Dolan.
Polly Middlehurst slaps me all the time, and I love it. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In the big question, will cameras in court improve British justice? We'll debate that with former Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe, ex-lawyer and UKIP leader Neil Hamilton, and top defence lawyer Jade Gambrill. Anne will stick around to join my panel to react to Rishi Sunak's latest TV interview tonight on Channel 4. Is Sunak still in the race for number 10? In the news agenda with my panel, should strip clubs be banned? Was the Wagatha Christie trial a waste of time and money? And is it time to build on the green belt? Reacting to those stories and many more are my fantastic panel of a brand new voice on the show, media commentator Lizzie Zita, comedian Josh Howie, ever shrinking, and TV personality, actress and author Aisling Horgan-Wallace. Do remind me to bring my sunglasses next time, Aisling. I want to hear from you throughout the show. The best bit of my programme is when you get in touch. This show is only about you. mark@gbnews.uk. And this programme has a golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So there you go, a very busy 2 hours. Big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. In case you hadn't noticed, communism is knocking on our door. And if we carry on at this rate, it will break it down. Whilst the pandemic disgracefully saw the West sacrificing its liberal principles by introducing Chinese-style lockdowns to stop COVID, a policy which, in my view, failed spectacularly, it added insult to injury by using establishment media outlets and high-profile scientists and medics to crush debate around COVID measures. And anyone that didn't follow the narrative, whether it was masks, lockdowns or vaccines, was demonised and called a bad person. Those are all techniques adopted by totalitarian regimes. Control the narrative, control the media message, and get ordinary citizens to police each other's thinking. Remember during the pandemic when neighbours were grassing each other up for going out more than once a day? The old curtain twitchers? Well, that's something that Stasi, or indeed Chairman Mao, would have looked upon proudly. The principle that a state directive is for the common good was established during the pandemic and is the ultimate weapon of tyranny, which will continue to be used in relation to other so-called emergencies, including heat waves, energy crises, and climate change. What's shocking is not that this outdated and perpetually discredited ideology of communism is still knocking about. It's the way that the so-called democratic West has allowed it to encroach upon our lives as hard left woke ideology infects our institutions, our corporations and the media. The behavioural scientist Susan Michie, nicknamed Stalin's nanny, an advisor to SAGE, has helped to deploy the dark arts of public manipulation, and she shaped, in my view, ultimately a more damaged society. with the peddling of masks, lockdowns, and self-isolation. These are all deeply illiberal policies, not remotely in the spirit of free democratic societies, which were championed by the likes of Mitchie, but which have left us with a poorer, sicker, angrier, and more diminished society. The push for communism is a global one. If you think I'm exaggerating, the aforementioned Mitchie has been promoted to a new position of chair of the Behavioural Advisory Group at the World Health Organization, which I like to call the World Hell Organization. Remember, Susan Mitchie, a self-declared communist. Folks, this is not a drill. Meanwhile, the World Hell Organization are seeking to create an international treaty in which this unelected cabal, which admires China, turned a blind eye to President Xi's COVID cover-up and praised China's pandemic policies, is now going to seek the powers to lock us down and mask us whenever they fancy, irrespective of the views of national governments. So much for sovereignty, eh? And in fact, mild communism has been government policy in this country since March 2020, paying healthy people to stay at home and do nothing, and smashing our economy against a brick wall and closing once viable businesses. That's not very Western, is it? And capitalism, it ain't. The state being responsible not just for your health, but even your income, set a dangerous new precedent, with siren voices from the hard left now calling for inflation-busting pay rises across the whole of the public sector, which risks Venezuelan levels of inflation and Greek levels of debt. And as with all communist regimes, the truth is the first casualty. We're seeing it in Britain. Communist-style woke ideology ignores the basic facts of human biology by declaring that men are women and that women are men. Thank God the wretched Tavistock Centre, which has been chopping organs off youngsters and blocking their puberty with medication, is to be closed down. Here's what my new political hero, Kemi Badenoch, had to say about that decision. She tweeted, "I can't state enough how profound the decision is to close down the Tavistock Centre. There's lots I can say now that I'm no longer Equalities Minister. Personal testimonies, heard of destroyed childhoods, protecting whistleblowing clinicians from endless harassment by Twitter activists." The basic laws of economics have been assaulted, with the idea that printing trillions of pounds worth of empty money won't be inflationary and will do no harm. And whilst the vaccine is great for the vulnerable, it's only this bizarre collectivist mindset that requires kids and healthy youngsters to have the jab. With a degree of risk from the jab, but scarce threat from the virus to youngsters, whatever happened to first do no harm? Well, it went out after the hellish marriage of big state and big pharma. Communism is a hateful regime in which it's seeking division at every turn. Divide and conquer and all of that. Well, we're seeing it now with ideas like critical race theory, which is a contested view that the colour of your skin marks you out as inherently prejudicial. It's a controversial idea currently being peddled in our civil service. We're paying for it. Take a look at this. There you go. White civil servants told Britain is racist in woke training video. The programme tells staff they must recognise their privilege, be an ally to ethnic minorities and never contradict them. Pretty patronising to people of colour, that, isn't it? And arguably racist in so many different ways towards everyone. Now, racism is the most evil stain on humanity, but the only answer is for all of us to come together, to reaffirm that we're all Brits. We're all human beings. We're all precious, and we're all brothers and sisters in the eyes of God, whoever your God may be. But when it comes to the Church of Woke, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Here's the academic Matthew Goodwin on Twitter this week. New data, he writes, doesn't fit the narrative. Progression rates into British universities by ethnic group. Chinese, 81%, Asian, 65%, black, 62%, mixed, 48%, white, 39.7%. White kids on free school meals, the least likely of all to go to university, just 13.6%. We must tackle poverty and inequality and lift everyone up as one community. But this new wave of communism hates all of that. It hates the flag, it hates nationhood, it hates family, it hates history, and it hates unity. Its only currency is division. It's a very communist idea to rewrite history, which we're now doing with Britain, a country which exported liberal ideas, democracy, free speech and free enterprise. Oh, and after century of slavery, we were the first global power to bring slavery to an end. But this new variant of communism is infiltrating our institutions, including schools and universities, who would have you believe Britain's a dreadful country with a shameful history. Well, shame on them. The RMT union, meanwhile, is said to be seeking a general strike in which all of our industries down tools, supposedly to improve the lot of workers. But what will it really do? It will bring down the government, perhaps something they want. But it will be something more than that. It will be step one in dismantling our capitalist system, one which has seen unprecedented prosperity and has lifted billions out of poverty globally. Since the economic horror show of the 1970s, Britain has become the fifth biggest economy in the world, and that was not achieved by communism. It was achieved by capitalism, which is now a four-letter word. What our country stands for is under attack. It's the collective over the individual. It's the state over families. It's the ideology over science, wisdom, experience, and common sense. So-called wokeism is a cult. They're a bunch of utter cults. Woke ideology sees five-year-olds coming home from primary school asking their parents if they're racist, and which thinks it's okay for grown men packing a full meat and two veg to race past women in the swimming pool or break their neck in a rugby field. Are we going to wait for the first life-changing injury or death of a biological female at the hands of a trans woman in sport? This new wave of communism, Communism 2.0, is the virus we can stop and the virus we must stop. And we do it by falling back on the values that make this country great. Reason, argument, free speech, fairness, tolerance, freedom, democracy, individualism, and basic human decency and dignity. The extreme woke left, that millions of Labour supporters hate as well, they loathe this country and are seeking to destroy everything it stands for. If we yield to wokeism, which is communism in all but name, if we yield to the hard left, we will be left with nothing at all. Mark's my words, communism is back, and we have to defeat it all over again. Mark's my words, that's why they pay me the big bucks. Reflecting on that and all of the big stories of the day, my all-star panel, Aisling Horgan-Wallace, TV personality, actress and author, comedian Josh Howie, and brand new to Mark Dolan tonight, media commentator Lizzie Zita. And Lizzie, let me start with you. Welcome to the show. Do you fear, like I do, the return of communism in heels, essentially kind of a woke leftist ideology that's infiltrating our institutions?
Well, I can tell you my father's passed away now, but he fought the communists in 1956. He came to this country and built a life here. I've been watching and been aware of all my life of the dangers of communism. I mean, it suppressed my family all the way up until the 80s. They could not work because my father had fled the country, as had my aunt. And now we see what's happening in the Ukraine. We see what's happening in China. They can't be trusted. They really cannot be trusted. And look at the latest thing with Putin. He signed an agreement with the Ukrainians to say, yes, the ports were going to be free. And then the next day he bombed them. It's extremely worrying.
Well, I think you're absolutely right about that. And my concern now, Lizzie, is that this kind of communism light is washing onto our shores.
It is, but it's always been there because that's what they do. They infiltrate. They infiltrate all kinds. They're infiltrating the universities. They're teaching Marxism in the universities. And it's fine to teach Marxism, but have a counterbalance. Have the other point of view as well, so that our kids don't come home and say, well, actually, you know what, Mum, I'm a Marxist.
Well, that's right. I mean, we saw, didn't we, Lizzie, an important part of COVID policy essentially led by Susan Mitchie, who is a behavioural scientist and a self-declared communist. I mean, people could call me a conspiracy theorist. She is a communist supporter. She supports that ideology. She's just been signed up to the World Health Organization, which means that, you know, essentially these communist voices have a global platform. And don't forget the WHO, I would argue, in the pocket of China.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know whether they're in the pocket of China, but I do know that in all of the political institutions, in particular Labour, what's happened to Labour, look at Corbyn, all these fringes became very, very mainstream. And I have to say that I think that Keir Starmer has done a very good job of trying to steady the ship. I think he's a good guy. I think that he's really tried his best to rid the party of the real lunatics on the left-hand side. And also, listen, we've got them on the right as well. So I think that, you know, the best way forward is always the middle ground, always the moderates.
Amen to that. The extremists are always the problem. Josh, Howie, what do you think about this? Am I overreacting to the threat of this kind of, you know, woke takeover of the country?
Yeah, massively. No. Look, there's so much of what you said that I agree with. I don't agree. I think it's a slight misnomer putting it under communism 2.0. I think that there are a lot of individual problem areas that we do need to look at, and I think you correctly called them out, and I agree with you about the WHO. They're absolutely in the pocket of China, and they've been proven that they financed now the head of the WHO, who's now like ruled in favour loads of times for them since, also the trans debate and so many of the other things. But like Lizzie said, I think that, or alluded to, I think out there, there is a silent centrist majority, and I feel like maybe we're finding our voice.
Well, I hope so, because I think that a lot of people have accepted some of these bonkers ideas like pronoun name badges at your local bank.
Where's my
People have just thought, you know, well, look, I'll put up with this for a quiet life. But these forces, these anti-democratic forces, cancel culture, a challenge to free speech, calling Shakespeare problematic, demonising Winston Churchill, the man who defeated history's greatest monster, Hitler. At a certain point, you know, these disruptive voices are not going away. They're getting louder, Josh.
That's it. And I actually had a lunch today with one of my best friends, and exactly this. And he's not interested in any of this stuff. And it was incredibly frustrating because he was agreeing with me about this stuff. And but it was like, mate, if you don't get involved, who is getting involved? Who is actually fighting back? And look, people want a quiet life. I understand that. I wanted a quiet life until Corbyn dragged me kicking and screaming into this debate and the abuse. I'm still getting abused. Yesterday I'm getting threats on Twitter, someone wanting to smash my face in and stuff from these Corbynites. They're still there. They're still out there. And people need to stand up and take back that central, sensible ground.
Yes.
Yeah. Ashleen, will we ever reoccupy that centre ground?
I don't know, but after hearing your speech, I think Mark for Prime Minister, no? Because I thought we were miles away from a communist society, but after hearing that, I'm a bit...
You'd make a great deputy.
Thanks.
But, you know, the other thing to say about it is that when the revolution happened in Russia, there were three things that the people wanted. It was bread, land, peace, OK? The communist revolution happened for a very small group of people. Now, the vast majority, it hasn't changed, Mark. Bread, yeah, we want enough to eat at a decent price. We want somewhere decent to live, land, and we want peace in our country. That's all anybody, really, the middle ground, that's what everybody wants.
Well, yes, but Ashleen, you know, you've been really successful since you became a reality TV star, you know, a broadcaster and commentator, and you do so many things, but I feel that being aspirational, wanting to buy a nice car and own your own home is going to become increasingly taboo in this rather controlling new society we've got.
Well, I agree. I've read a few articles and people saying it's selfish to want a car and we might have to carpool. And I think that that's just stunting people's personal growth. Some people don't have the same aspirations as others, and who are we to police people's dreams and achievements and how hard they work to get there? I think, yeah.
I mean, finally on this, Ashleen, how do we save our country? Because I believe its values and its institutions are under attack. So what do we do, Ashleen?
Come on, Ashleen, save the country.
I just think we all should. I think we should stick up for what we believe. We shouldn't be snowflakes, and we shouldn't be bullied into conformism. And vote for you for Prime Minister, as I said.
Well, let's not get carried away. But you know what? You're dressed like a superhero tonight. You look fabulous, Ashley. And I think
I came to brighten up the world.
I do think you've got it absolutely right. Don't be bullied. That's the key thing. Because in the end, that's what the hardliners want to do, is bully all of us into submission. But it's our country, and we're going to take it back. And by our, I mean all of us. What do you think? Mark at GBNews.uk in the news agenda with my amazing panel tonight. Does Rishi Sunak still have a chance? Is he still in the race for number 10? We'll reflect on that with my panel and politics legend Anne Widdecombe. Also, should stripping be banned? And is it time to build on the green belt? Lots to get through, plus a special surprise for Mark Meets at 10. But next up in the big question, will cameras improve British justice? We'll discuss that with former UKIP leader Neil Hamilton. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Big reaction to my big opinion monologue. John says, hi Mark, fully agree with your analysis. Add to that the outrage today at the profits energy companies who explore and develop oil and gas fields that we desperately need, despite the massive hostility from the climate alarmists and the deliberately inflammatory suggestion that the bosses, rather than shareholders, trouser all the money. Almost anyone with a pension pot has benefited from sharing these profits, but nobody makes the case for capitalism. John, couldn't agree with you more. I am an unapologetic proponent and champion of capitalism, which is becoming a four-letter word. We certainly haven't had it, have we, for the last 2 years. Peter says woke ideology doesn't care about the social justice it claims to speak for. It's a Trojan horse sent to erode our culture and values from within. Bad ideas spread like viruses, and that's why it's crucial to speak out against this heinous and destructive brainwashing. It is a cult. Keep those emails coming in, mark@gbnews.uk. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. History was made this week with cameras allowed into a UK court. The first televised case at London's Old Bailey Central Criminal Court saw Judge Sarah Monroe jail Ben Oliver for life, with a minimum jail term of more than 10 years after he admitted in January to killing his grandfather. But with a backlog of cases, shorter sentences, and many criminals walking away scot-free, is British justice broken? And will cameras in court really improve justice in this country? In just a moment, I'll debate this with former Minister of State for Prisons and Shadow Home Secretary Anne Widdecombe, former lawyer and current UKIP leader Neil Hamilton, and top defence lawyer Jade Gambrell. But first, I caught up with US lawyer to the stars, Michael Jackson and Winona Ryder's former lawyer, Mark Geragos, who told me how things work in America.
Basically, the only courts that are televised are state courts. The federal courts do not televise trials, which is one of the reasons you didn't see Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, because that was in the federal court. The U.S. Supreme Court, which is a federal court, does audio stream, meaning that you can't see it, but you can hear it, the proceedings in the U.S. Supreme Court. But other than that, it's only at the state level, as of right now, where we televise trials.
Fascinating guy, one of America's most famous lawyers. I also asked him what having cameras in courts has actually achieved.
I have argued for many years that the U.S. has imported from the U.K. a kind of a tabloidization, if you will, of the criminal law. Well, one of the things that we did not import from the UK was your Contempt of Court Act, which basically is a counterbalance to doing the massive publicity that you get normally in criminal cases. Obviously, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard was an exception. That wasn't criminal, although by the time it was done, I almost felt like it was a criminal case. The fact remains that one of the problems is it offers transparency. It offers, presumably, at least in theory, an educational vehicle for the public. But on the downside, it's very difficult to get a fair trial. And there is a kind of a gladiator aspect to it.
Now, don't forget that this legal veteran is the man who defended Michael Jackson. Tough gig. I asked him about whether televising trials cheapens the whole system and possibly contributes to a higher crime rate. Here's what he had to say.
A lot of people who've made the argument, and I think there's a compelling nature to it, that part of the school shooting problem is that you find predominantly it's white males of a very young age, and that the publicity attendant to it ends up kind of attracting that. I don't know that I buy into all of that, but yes, it does cheapen the system in a lot of ways. People get what I think is a skewed view of what lawyering or judging is all about. But I think I would be more judicious, pun intended, in the use of which cases get televised. But when you have, generally, the televised trials are what I have affectionately or not so affectionately called the supersized trials. It's difficult enough to get a fair trial in a case that has that much attention. Then you throw, this gasoline on the fire, so to speak. It makes it even more difficult. It operates the same way as the internet does. You get online clicks. So what is trying to be done is maximize eyeballs. It's one of the reasons you don't see a whole lot of televised probate cases or unlawful eviction cases. I think that all the added attention makes it more difficult generally for famous or celebrity people to get fair trials. Infamous people who are known for their notoriety, it works in the opposite way.
You didn't see his other hand. He was wearing Michael Jackson's white glove. Now, to discuss this further, I'm delighted to welcome top defence lawyer Jade Gambrell, leader of UKIP and former barrister Neil Hamilton, and former prisons minister and former Shadow Home Secretary Anne Widdecombe. Jade Gambrell, let me start with you. Is it appropriate to bring cameras into the courtroom? Does it not risk turning our court system into another part of showbiz?
It absolutely does risk that. As far as I can see, this is the criminal justice system, not Love Island. We're dealing with the darkest, most traumatic moment of people's lives, and it's not for entertainment. It sort of has the feel of the modern day public stocks in the village square, where instead of throwing rotten fruit we're throwing tweets. And it certainly does have the feel of cheapening justice to use it in that way.
Also, does it not engender a more vengeful society that's focused on the sentence rather than rehabilitation?
It would certainly seem that way. And it also, at the moment, seems, quite frankly, like a cheap trick to distract from an otherwise crumbling system, and instead to throw the blame at the sentencing judge rather than at what's really wrong with the system.
However, Jade Gambrell, watching criminals go down, being sentenced, is that not a deterrent, perhaps? You know, other people, criminally minded, watching the consequences of crime and might think twice?
Not at all. I couldn't see that at all. Those people would have to also be watching these sentencing remarks, for one, and as far as I can see, even those yesterday were taken into sound bites, and some outlets or online we were seeing sound bites and not the full remarks. So we really weren't getting the full picture of the judge's very methodical approach to that sentencing, which was highly complex and highly technical.
And you've mentioned, Jade Gambrell, that our justice system is crumbling. Can you elaborate on that? Just where do the problems lie? Is it a backlog of cases?
That's certainly one of the parts of the problem. It's catastrophically, chronically underfunded at all levels. So we're talking police, we're talking courts, we're talking Crown Prosecution Service and defence practitioners. It's chronically underfunded, and frankly, it's quite fortunate if we are going to film sentencing remarks, we only see the judge, because if you panned round, you'd probably see the bucket catching the drips and the mould on the walls. The waiting times are horrendous. We're waiting years for potentially a charge. We're then waiting years for a case to get to trial, and it does not seem to be coming down. There seems, at the moment, it's just under 60,000 cases in the backlog. Understand the government ambition is to bring that down to 53,000 by 2025, which frankly doesn't seem very ambitious at all. We also have practitioners leaving in their droves, so lawyers leaving because it's financially unsustainable to stay. And if there is no one to defend, the case doesn't proceed.
I know, Jade Gambrell, that when Kenneth Clarke was Justice Secretary, he presided over 40% cuts during the coalition government between 2010 and 2015, and I think it was 40% cut to their budget. So clearly, there's a legacy of underfunding. Why does all of this matter to my viewers?
There's a huge legacy of underfunding, but it's right up to the present day, I've got to say. And it needs an injection, and it needs it now. It's important to viewers because any one of us, even us sitting here, anyone at all could find themselves in a courtroom or the subject of an allegation or wrongfully accused of a matter and requires representation. They need equality of arms, and they need to be able to feel that they can present a fair case and also receive a fair trial. And at the moment, I don't see that happening. At the coalface, we're seeing colleagues and friends leaving in vast numbers, and they just won't be here anymore when you need them. It's quite scary, frankly.
Neil Hamilton, you're a former lawyer, also a former Conservative MP and now leader of UKIP. This does sound like a crisis of the Tories making. After all, they've been in power for 12 years now.
Well, there is certainly a crisis in court funding, and I don't know why any newly qualified barrister would seek a career at the criminal bar, frankly, because the earnings are so nugatory. I mean, the average young criminal barrister in their 20s probably takes home a maximum of $20,000 a year. And without the kind of add-ons that you get when you're employed by a company, as a member of the bar, you're a sole practitioner and self-employed. So you have to meet all your expenses yourself. I think this has been building up for many, many years, and not simply under Conservative or the coalition government. It's been building up for decades. So something will have to be done about it because, as has just been said, eventually there will be no, or certainly not enough, defence lawyers available for justice to be done to those who are accused. But going back to the question which started all this about televising judgments, I don't really think there's much that can be said against that. I think it's a very good thing, and I'm all for openness and transparency. We sat through in the Supreme Court hearings over the various cases that Gina Miller and others raised. We sat through the entire proceedings, which were televised, and I think that was very, very useful for public information to see the arguments deployed. It wasn't exactly gripping television because the pace of progress in the higher courts on points of legal argument tends to be glacial rather than anything dramatic. A criminal trial could, of course, be very different. And different arguments, I think, apply in criminal cases. But I don't myself see any real objection to civil cases, appropriately civil cases, being televised. It's a matter for the courts themselves and the judge to decide. It can't happen below the Court of Appeal, so this is not something which is possible at the moment. And the innovation that we've just seen is just the televising of the delivery of the judgment, which would otherwise just be handed down in printed form and then published in the newspapers. I think it's a good thing that the public sees more of what goes on inside a court. And I don't myself think that there's a great deal of danger of trivialization or the kind of abuses which we heard talked about a moment ago. The Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney case was a bit of a pantomime, I think, in most people's opinion. And whether the public interest would have been served by televising that, I rather doubt. But there was undoubtedly great public interest in the case, and that's not necessarily the same as the public interest. But I do think that it's important that justice should be seen to be done, and the justice system should be seen as it works, and whether for good or ill. You could make the same argument as used to be made, of course, against televising Parliament. That's only something which has come about in my life whilst I was a member of Parliament. In fact, that decision was taken because the argument against that was that it would trivialise proceedings. Well, it hasn't turned out to be like that, has it? All you see now is acres of empty green benches normally. But it does show you the reality of what happens in the chamber of the House of Commons. And I think courts are much the same. I think that in general, it would be a good thing for the public to see more of what happens inside the courtroom.
Well, yes, Neil Hamilton, the great revelation about cameras in Parliament is we all discovered how incredibly photogenic you are.
Yes, but I'm a lot older now and decrepit, and I've got to the stage now where bits of my body are packing up or falling off.
Except your brain, which is why you're still leader of a national political party, Neil. Anne Widdecombe, does this not shine a light on how our justice system works and therefore educates the populace?
No, I don't think that at all. I'm with Jay on this one. I think there are all manner of dangers inherent in televising court proceedings. Now, I think, that if it is one or two very big constitutional cases which you're looking at, that is one thing. But we all know about mission creep. It happened with televising Parliament. When we first started televising Parliament, you couldn't do anything more than focus on the person who was speaking. You weren't allowed to record reactions or anything like that. And now, of course, it's completely different. And so nothing ever stays still. Things move. And what worries me about televising court proceedings is excerpts and prejudicial comment. Now, I watched the American televising of the trial of the man accused of killing George Floyd. And what did you have immediately after each day's trial? You had pundits discussing, was this a prosecution day? Was this a defense day? Who won today? Now, what is across the pond today comes here tomorrow. And I don't want justice trivialised in that fashion. So, on balance, I'm completely against televising it. On the more important issue, which are delays, and that's much more important, There are delays at every stage. It's not just getting into court. The police take absolutely ages to process a case. Then the CPS have to decide whether they're going to prosecute or not. That takes ages. Then it's got to be listed. That takes ages. And then, of course, you have the unexpected holdups. I mean, I was involved in a trial in March. And first of all, a couple of the jury got COVID. We had to suspend. We all came back. And then the judge got COVID and we had to suspend again. Now, OK, COVID isn't going to be with us forever, but there are always reasons, barristers are ill, whatever it might be, that trials get postponed. And so when we're talking about delays to the justice system, we mustn't just focus on the courts. You need to start right back at the police end. This is where justice starts. And frankly, it is not justice if you have to wait 2 years for your case to be heard, regardless of whether you're innocent or guilty. And finally, when we talk about televising, I'm a columnist, and I am quite rightly prevented under the sub judice laws from making selective comments when I'm writing my column. And I think you will get, if you get selected things being shown on television, in the news, say, they select a bit, they won't show the whole thing, that could equally be prejudicial.
Fascinating conversation. My sincere thanks to top defence lawyer Jade Gambrill, also the leader of UKIP and former barrister Neil Hamilton, and former Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe. And Anne, I'm going to ask you to stick around for our next conversation. Neil, might you be available for a discussion on the Tory leadership after the break?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
There you go. We'll bump up your wages, because I'd love to hear the thoughts of Anne and Neil on just whether Rishi Sunak is still in the race for number 10. We'll react to the latest TV interview with Andrew Neil on Channel 4. I thought Andrew Neil did a brilliant job, grilled Rishi Sunak. But is the guy still in the running? We'll discuss that with Anne Widdecombe, Neil Hamilton and my panel. Plus, later in the show, should stripping be banned? And is it time to build on the green belt? We don't do boring, not on my watch. I'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Big reaction to my big opinion monologue. This from Peter Griffiths. Well done, Mark. Excellent analysis of wokery and how the commie pinkos are ruining our country, the UK. Many thanks for that. Keep those emails coming. Actually, just a quick word on our big question topic about cameras in court. This from Roy, who says, Mark, I couldn't care less if the courts are televised. I'm more interested in judges passing appropriate sentences, as many judges are too soft. Plus, how bored would you have to be to watch it? Roy, you're absolutely right about that. Keep those emails coming at mark@gbnews.uk. But look, let's get now to the race for number 10. Rishi Sunak was grilled by Andrew Neil, formerly of this parish, on Channel 4. Let's have a look at some of the things that Rishi Sunak had to say. And this is Rishi Sunak, and he's on the topic of energy bills. Take a look.
If I become Prime Minister at the beginning of September and energy bills go up in October, there is no time to design something else that would be a more perfect way of helping people. You've got to work with what you've got. And actually, VAT is it is a blunt instrument. I stick by what I said.
No, you said it disproportionately benefits the wealthy.
And it does, but it provides support to everybody. And if you've got 4 weeks after becoming Prime Minister to put in place a policy that will help 30 million households, this is pretty much the only lever left.
So good to see Andrew back on GB News. God, I miss him. And this is Rishi Sunak, I think, on the subject of the NHS. Let's take a look.
We need more elective surgical hubs. We need more community diagnostic centres. We need to use technology to cut through all the way that we do the actual appointment scheduling to free up clinicians' time. And we need to make sure that we call out poor leadership in the NHS, because there are great examples of good leadership and they know how to do it and we should learn from them. I will bring the same grip and urgency that I brought to helping this country get through the pandemic, delivering things like furlough in record time.
That's fine.
I will bring that to gripping the NHS waiting list problem as well.
Well, it was a great interrogation. So is Rishi Sunak still in with a chance of the most coveted job in public life? Let's get reaction now from former Conservative Minister and, of course, ex-Tory MP Anne Widdecombe. Also another ex-Tory and now leader of UKIP, Neil Hamilton, plus my fantastic panel of Aisling Horgan-Wallace, Josh Howie and Lizzie Zeta. Anne Widdecombe, is Rishi still in the race?
Oh, I think he's still in the race, and I've been calling consistently, as you will know, throughout this, to use VAT as a means of reducing bills. I mean, the whole point of Brexit was, well, not the whole point, but one of the big points of Brexit was we could actually take charge of our own taxes, especially VAT. Why aren't we doing it? You know, I mean, to me, that's always been an obvious one. But let me just say this. I know you want to talk about Rishi, and I won't try to sidetrack. But I am today very, very, very disappointed in Liz Truss, whom I have been backing for this, for her to say, on the one hand, that she wants to get crime down by 20%, and then to say that she wants to criminalise, that is, taking up police time, criminalise something as trivial as wolf whistling, then, frankly, she also is woke. She also is woke, and I almost give up at this point.
That's right. I'm wondering whether you're struggling to work out which candidate you could support, Anne.
Well, I've had no doubt up to this point that I was going to support Liz Truss because she is bold, she is imaginative, whereas Rishi is hugely conservative with a small c, doesn't appear to have any new ideas other than the VAT, which has come up today, and will always go for the safe option and the cautious option, and he will appease the French, and he wants to cooperate with the French. I want to tell the French where to go. And therefore, I do think that Liz Truss offers something much bolder and more realistic. But for her to start going down this woke road of getting the police tied up in wolf whistling. Look, nobody wolf whistles me these days, but when they did a long time ago, I used to wave. It was a compliment. I didn't run and say, please, Mr. Policeman, arrest that man and take 7 hours processing through the police station. Oh, come on.
Well, Anne,
come on.
I'm going to put it on the public record that you are gorgeous and I would wolf whistle you any day. Because not only are you a woman of substance, you're a very fine, attractive lady as well. I'm hearing from you, Anne, that Liz Truss is the lesser of two evils. What did you make of Sunak's performance tonight? Because I thought he was quite assured. We know Andrew Neil is the toughest interrogator in broadcasting.
Right, sorry, the sound went at the point where you said that you thought he was quite confident.
Anne Widdecombe, it was an assured performance from Rishi Sunak. He knows his stuff.
I think it was an assured performance. Rishi, I've never doubted, is very bright, he's very competent, but he is far too cautious. First it was, that he wouldn't reduce income tax. Then he sees cooperation with the French as the answer to the migrant problem. It certainly isn't. And wherever you look, Rishi is trying to negotiate, to compromise. That is not going to be the way forward, because although my own instincts would be that way at first, it's been proved to be hopeless. It isn't effective. Therefore, you have to seek new ways of doing things. Liz has been seeking new ways of doing things. She has been bold. She has been imaginative. But, honestly, if she's going to criminalise wolf whistling, I give up.
I do agree. It's a test case for common sense, Anne Widdecombe. Neil Hamilton, you've served under plenty of charismatic Tory leaders. Do you think that Rishi Sunak has edged himself closer to the top job with tonight's interview?
Well, I think it's unlikely. I know it's Tory members who are going to make this decision, and I've got no window into their soul. But I totally endorse what Anne has just said. I mean, Rishi Sunak is fundamentally an establishment man. He's part of the globalist international banking mindset. And as Anne has said, he'll seek to compromise and fudge things. That's the last thing we want. The whole point of Brexit is that we strike out on our own and make it, good use of the freedoms that we've got. I agree with her also about Liz Truss. Blessed are they who expect nothing, for they shall not be disappointed. So I've never really expected a great deal of Liz Truss either. Look at her antecedents on Brexit and other issues, and indeed even her early political allegiances makes her pretty suspect, in my view, having been a Lib Dem. But I know that she's now moved a great deal from where she was in her early 20s. But nevertheless, what I want is a prime minister with the right instincts. And so that their reactions are going to be in the right direction. They're not going to be cautious, as Anna's just said. We need boldness, and we need a radical prime minister now. Boris, for all his entertainment gifts, had no real strategy or idea what was the purpose of his government. Having achieved Brexit in name, he then did absolutely nothing with it. And I'd like to know, what Rishi Sunak has been doing for the last 2 years. Financial services deregulation is a vital part of Brexit, in my view. It's, we have a massive potential gain there. The EU has given us nothing on financial services and never will. They've kept all their advantages on trade. They have 100 billion a year trade surplus with us. They won't give equivalence to our financial services institutions. We should outcompete the EU. We should be slashing corporation tax, not increasing it as Rishi Sunak wanted to do.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more.
And outcompeting then other countries around the world.
Absolutely. Neil, I couldn't agree with you more. Jeremy Corbyn, when he was leader of the opposition, was at the dispatch box and he said to the Prime Minister, "You're trying to turn Britain into Singapore-on-Sea." And I thought, bring it on. Singapore, here we come. Aisling Horgan-Wallace, were you impressed by Rishi Sunak tonight? Did he do anything to win your votes?
I was on my way to the studio, so I didn't really get to see any of it. But I think that Liz did the right thing by not having the same interview, because I think that she's got a strong vote in Parliament, and I think he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. But from what I'm hearing and reading of the news online, it wasn't a good look for him.
That's interesting. Josh, what do you think? This guy's got to do a lot, hasn't he, to turn this race around? It seems to be that Liz Truss has got a hand on the trophy.
Yeah, but I disagree with Anne Widdecombe, because, she's saying about cautiousness and Rishi Sunak being cautious. Well, he's the one who actually did the interview. And it seems like Liz Truss is the one who's been cautious and basically chickening out. She should be brave and go and stand in front of him and be interviewed and find out what she's about. I don't know really what either particularly about. I'm not enthused about either of them, of course. Well, I'm traditionally a Labour supporter before Corbyn. But the fact is, it goes to 100,000 people in this country who are going to decide who our next Prime Minister is that, for me, is not democracy. That's, I believe, why we left the EU, wasn't it? Was that we had these overlords making decisions on our behalf. That was what I was told anyway. And now what, someone's going to come into power and lead us, and they're just going to be chosen by a very, very, very few select group of people. So for me, it's like, fine, get them a new leader, and that leader, the first thing they should do is call a general election.
Lizzie, Zita, very briefly, couple of seconds. Rishi Sunak, did he do anything to catch your eye tonight?
No, he didn't. He's too slick. He's too rich. I don't feel that he can connect with ordinary people on the streets. And honestly, if you're going to, coming from a fashion background, if you're going to wear Gucci shoes, don't wear the Gucci shoes. Wear British designers. Wear British suits. Go to Savile Row and wear shoes from Loeb's, are brilliant British designers.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Many thanks to Anne Widdecombe and Neil Hamilton and my fantastic panel. We return in a couple of minutes' time with my take at 10. I'll be talking about our relationship with Australia. And we've got a very surprise guest. One of the biggest stars from Neighbours joins us live at 10:05. So don't miss that. Plus, in the news agenda, should stripping be banned? And is it time to build on the green belt? Plus the papers at 10:30. And another game show, Famous Dogs. We don't mess around. See you in 3.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan tonight. In the news agenda with my panel, should strip clubs be banned? Was the Wagatha Christie trial a waste of time and money? And is it time to build on the green belt? My Mark Meets guest is Neighbours legend Ryan Maloney, a.k.a. Toadfish, as that iconic soap aired for the last time earlier this evening. Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. And after this, my take at 10, Britain and Australia, the other special relationship. Find out more shortly, but first the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Mark, thank you. The top story tonight on GB News. Conservative leadership candidate Rishi Sunak has been addressing his new vision for the UK, as you've been hearing. In a heated exchange with journalist Andrew Neil, the former Chancellor was questioned about the economy, the rise in national insurance and the government's Rwanda policy. Mr Sunak also defended his plans to cut VAT on energy bills, which has been described as something of a U-turn.
If I become Prime Minister at the beginning of September and energy bills go up in October, There is no time to design something else that would be a more perfect way of helping people. You've got to work with what you've got. And actually, VAT is it is a blunt instrument. I stick by what I said.
No, you said it disproportionately benefits the wealthy.
And it does, but it provides support to everybody. And if you've got 4 weeks after becoming Prime Minister to put in place a policy that will help 30 million households, this is pretty much the only lever left.
Meanwhile, his opponent, Liz Truss, says she's not complacent about her chances at winning after getting Ben Wallace's backing. The Defence Secretary's endorsement is expected to give her campaign a major boost. It comes after the first official hustings with Conservative Party members in Leeds last night. Now, news away from politics. More than 4,000 victims of a decades-long contaminated blood scandal could get compensation. The inquiry judge is recommending that each of them should receive at least £100,000 and, without delay, at least 2,400 people died after they were infected with HIV or hepatitis C through NHS treatments in the 1970s and 80s. Spain is reporting its first monkeypox-related death. It's believed to be Europe's first death from the disease. Only 5 deaths have been reported worldwide. Last weekend, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global health emergency. And the actor Will Smith is now apologising to Chris Rock months after slapping him in front of a global audience at the Oscars. Smith smacked the comedian for making a joke about his wife's hair loss. He's now addressing the incident in a new video posted on Instagram, answering questions about the night.
I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Will Smith. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. This is GB News, where now it's time for part 2 of Mark Dolan Tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, should strip clubs be banned? Was the Wagatha Christie trial a waste of time and money? And is it time to build on the green belt? Plus, another topical game show tonight based around famous dogs, that's right, celebrity hounds, and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And my Mark Meets guest is Neighbours legend Ryan Maloney, a.k.a. Toadfish, as that iconic soap aired for the last time earlier this evening. Speaking of which, it's time for my take at 10. UK television has aired the final ever episode of Neighbours. Why is this a significant moment? Well, astonishingly, even though it's a moderate hit over in Australia itself, the cost of making that programme has largely been bankrolled by British audiences, eager to hoover up those Antipodean storylines acted out by bleach-blonde, platinum-toothed actors from down under. When Channel 5 decided to no longer air the programme and with no other bidders coming in, that was the end of Ramsay Street. So Neighbours was essentially an Australian show made in Australia for a British audience. And the reason why is because we bloody love Australia. In my view, it's the other special relationship. Australia bravely fought with us in 2 world wars, and the United Kingdom is the second largest overall foreign investor in Australia, whilst the Aussies are the 7th largest foreign direct investor in Britain. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. The cultural exchange between the 2 countries has been massive as well, with the importing of true intellectual geniuses like Clive James and the fearless feminist Germaine Greer. Love Germaine Greer. As well as comic genius Dame Edna Everage. And let's not forget pop icon Kylie Minogue. Australian literature is world-class. Its music, its food, its film industry, all world-class. And we know that they're quite good at sport as well. As this bright, sunny and innovative country continues to mature, like so many family members, it may grow further away from us, and that's okay. There's talk of losing the Queen as head of state, but that's a matter for the Australian people. Our history together, our bond, and that partnership is insuperable and will grow, but just in a different way. Australia might be on the other side of the world, but we couldn't be closer to our kangaroo-loving cousins. So Neighbours may be over, but the storylines in the Anglo-Australian soap opera will continue apace. We've got so many new episodes to share together, based upon our shared values of free enterprise, creativity, sport, industry, culture, and so much more. Plus, Australia was among the first major economies to sign a comprehensive free trade agreement with the UK following our departure from the EU. As the theme tune goes, everybody needs good neighbours. With a little understanding, you can find the perfect blend. Neighbours should be there for one another. That's when good neighbours become good friends. And friends don't get much better than our pals down under. Cheers, Cobber. And another reason why I love Australia, we got so many Australians at GB News. First of all, my fantastic producer, Rebecca, there she is, so good at her job, books these amazing star guests for the show, enthusiastic, hardworking, and dangerously talented. And what about this guy? The boss of GB News, Angelos Frangopoulos. Don't be put off or confused by the Greek name. This guy is Australian to the core and our spiritual leader. What a man, without whom we all wouldn't be here. So there you go. Those are my heroes, and I might drink that later in the show. Cooper's Brewery, original pale ale. Australian-made, Australian-owned. It's like Kylie Minogue in a bottle, isn't it? Let's do Mark Meets. Yes, indeed, this is the moment in the show in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. And what better way to celebrate Australia than with two stars of the iconic soap Neighbours, show legend Ryan Maloney, a.k.a. Toadfish, and Benjamin McNair, who played Malcolm Kennedy, son of legendary Dr. Carl. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Great to have both of you with me. Ryan, let me start with you. I guess this moment is tinged with sadness for you.
Yeah. It's been 28 years of my life that has finally wrapped up. And of course, 37 years of an absolute icon of a show that's just supported, so many people throughout the years. It's put roofs over people's heads and, sent kids to school and all that kind of jazz. At any time, there's over 200 people working on Neighbours, every single day. So it's quite sad, and all those relationships in between have all wrapped up now. So saying that, it's time for that next adventure, isn't it?
Indeed. I mean, I'm devastated to see the end of the soap, Ryan. Neighbours was very well made. So many episodes put out, very consistent quality.
Absolutely. I think, the fact that we produce 6 episodes a week, so the fastest producing show in the world, and the quality in which we did it, it's just, that stands the testament of the professionalism that we actually hold at Neighbours. We always held each other account, and we did the absolute best at all times. So, I think in terms of training grounds, to go through Neighbours, you just come out so good and so polished. So, I think we've all been incredibly lucky to have had a go through Neighbours, to be honest.
And you've grown up on the show. You've grown up on national, international TV, Ryan. Will you miss Toadie?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to miss going to work and mucking around and seeing my mates and seeing what I can just get away with on international TV. That was really my job. What kind of stupidity can I do? And people say, yes, let's do that.
Benjamin McNair, you played Malcolm Kennedy. Tell me about the moment you found out you got that job. You're going to star in Neighbours.
I actually remember that moment quite distinctly. I was in my combi van in Byron Bay, halfway to become a tourist.
I love you, Benji.
He rang me up and said, "You're going south, mate. Off you go." I turned my van around and came to Melbourne.
That's it. Neighbours, a massive deal. You were going to be known in Australia and known around the world, Benjamin.
I did not think about that at the time. It was something that came as a very big surprise, and I'm very grateful for it.
And what about getting on set with those big egos, Ryan Maloney, all those other stars that have been there for many years? Was it daunting, Ben?
Are you talking about the return? No, the return was just like walking in through the front door again. It was wonderful, being embraced by family and friends. It's something I'm going to miss dreadfully.
Well, yeah, for sure. Listen, I mean, why has it ended, Benjamin? Because, I mean, I thought it was compelling viewing. It still had healthy viewing figures in the UK. Had it lost its lustre in Australia?
No, not to my knowledge at all. I mean, I have read several articles that the business model was flawed, and no one can really give us the reason why. I mean, we've got the viewing here and you've got the viewing in the UK, so I'd love to get to the bottom of that.
And have you spent time in the UK at all, Benjamin, and hoovered up all of the fame and celebrity that being on Neighbours has given you?
I have done so, and I enjoyed it very much. I was born there. I've got my family there, aunties and cousins. I went back in 2000. I went back in 99. And it's a great place. The Brits, the UK, it's a wonderful place to be. They embrace Neighbours like big, warm cuddle. It's beautiful.
Well, why do we like Neighbours? Why have we watched it in our millions for so many years, Benjamin?
I think it's because we bounce along and it's jovial and it's fun and it's larrikinism and it's things you probably wouldn't normally see, and you know, you're hoping to see a kangaroo bounce past in front of the camera one day.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question, Ryan, I know you're a very in-demand actor. What's next for you?
What's next? I don't know. I'm the way I've kind of look at it is that over the years I've seen people leave Neighbours, and I think, oh look, they're about to start on their adventure, and I go, oh well, when's mine going to start? So mine's starting now. I'm not kind of coming up with any kind of preconceived ideas. I'd love to, do more acting, more TV and film. I'd love to come over to the UK and have a crack in one of your dramas. That would be absolutely special. So I'm just not saying no to anything. And then in the meantime, I'm doing civil construction. As you can see in the background, we've got a bit of a farm. You're talking about kangaroos jumping past. You might see some going in the background through that window. But I'm about to start doing civil construction and, going to do what every little boy dreams of and learn how to drive trucks and excavators and dig big holes. So it's all one big adventure.
Right. You're telling me that you're leaving Neighbours, one of the biggest shows in the world, and you're becoming a builder.
Well, yeah. Well, they're a little, lollipop man as well, holding the stop-go sign on the side of a road.
Are you working on a property of your own, or are you helping a friend out? What exactly is the nature of this new job?
Oh, no, okay. This house that you see me in won't be here in 12 months' time. It's all getting knocked down. So, yeah.
That's very exciting. Well, that'll keep you busy. Ryan, any casting agent worth their salt watching will be in touch with you. We'd love to see you on a British drama. You're a very versatile actor. The character of Toadie is very layered and has grown, literally in terms of becoming a man, but also as a character as well. What about your other options career-wise, looking at some of your former colleagues? You could jump ship to Home and Away or start a pop career.
Yeah. Well, I think probably only one of those, could actually really come true because I can't really sing. So,
is there a rivalry between those two soaps?
Look, we'd like to pretend that there is, but there isn't. The reality is that they're two fantastic shows that just keep so many people in the industry employed. Well, now it's down to one. So I guess it's actually quite strange and funny. Well, it's not strange at all. It's quite funny that as soon as Neighbours finished, there's been quite a lot of our crew members who are now working on Home and Away. And over that period of time, we've had a lot of people just kind of going backwards and forwards as well. So, no, we absolutely love the Home and Away crew.
And how much contact have you had with other former stars of the show, Ryan, like Kylie and like Jason?
Well, it's very limited because that's what the court order says that I'm allowed to do.
That is a great answer. What's going to happen now, Benjamin? We're going to be speculating for the next couple of years about the return of Neighbours, aren't we?
We are. Absolutely, we are. That's it. Well, that's all the public are talking about. They're going to say, nah, it'll come back. It's going to come back. It'll come back, no worries.
I bloody well hope so. What is the difference, Benjamin, between British fans and Australian fans of the soap?
I think the British fans are far more passionate. The Australian fans, you can walk past someone in the street, they go, hey, Mal. Like, g'day, how you going? And you walk past a bunch of people in the UK, it's like, run! Very, very passionate people, very passionate.
Obviously, Ryan, as with Benjamin, particularly you, because you were on the soap for so long, it's changed your life, hasn't it? It's been your living, it's been your craft as well. You talked about the crew. It must be like a family on set, and that's going to be tough. Any downsides to your life on Ramsay Street? Any regrets?
I wouldn't change anything. Probably the biggest downside is just trying to manage like all of that kind of fame and attention. That's one thing for me to deal with, but then when you realize that your family has to deal with it as well, and they haven't been brought up with it and they're not trained in it, and having kids don't want to have all of that attention on them. I was at the gym with my daughter, and before you know it, we've got a whole exercise group wanting to take photos with me, and she's just like, oh my God, this is just hell. And then once that finished, we looked up at the TV screens and Neighbours was on the TV in the gym, and that just kind of kicked it off for the rest of the gym. So, it's things like that you kind of go, I'm thankful that I am leaving for that point, in that, perhaps, my kids can just kind of go under the radar a bit more, and just enjoy having dad a bit more instead of, the famous guy off TV.
And last but not least, Ryan, you married Sonia in the final episode. Do you love her in real life? Will that marriage last?
I married Mel. Is that what you said? Sorry.
Well, no. Do you know something? I've missed the final episode. You'll have to forgive me. My research department have let me down there. But listen, it ended on a high note. It was an incredible series. It gave the British people thousands of hours of pleasure. You're both part of it. Can I congratulate you on an amazing show? And I wish both of you every luck in the future. Ryan, have fun with that digger.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys.
I've heard it's a big one. Ryan Maloney, legend, Toadie, and the wonderful actor Benjamin McNair, who played Malcolm Kennedy, Alan's son. Thank you, boys. Really appreciate the time. And do come and see us when you're in Blighty. What do you think about that? Seeing Toadie on British TV. I would definitely pay to see that. Lots more to come. Next up, is it time to ban strip clubs? And then we've got the papers live at 10:30. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Oh my God, live telly. Folks, welcome back to Mark Dolan tonight. Lots to get through. We've got the papers at exactly 10:30. Cannot wait for that. Also, we're going to react to the papers. So we're also going to be asking whether we should build on the green belt. That's what I'll be asking my wonderful panel. A part of Rishi Sunak's campaign, his manifesto, if you like, is that he will not actually build on the green belt. Well, I think it's time. Let's think about that housing crisis. We are desperate to build, baby, build. But what do you think? I'll get to your views shortly. But it's time now to welcome back my panel as we go through the news agenda. And Bristol Council have today voted against banning strip clubs in the city. The Labour-led council in Edinburgh is also thinking of outlawing the establishments. Women's rights organisations have for years been campaigning against them, saying that they encourage higher levels of violence towards women and girls, whilst Bristol Sex Workers Collective argue that women should be able to do what they want. So is it a good move, or should people be free to actually expose their bodies to the public? What do we think about this, folks? I'll start with you, because I know you're a former stripper, Josh.
Why haven't I been to one of your shows?
Why am I getting a big laugh here?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, exactly. It's this is a real trigger. I don't like ever not having like a proper opinion about something like this, but I think this is one of those ones where I just don't know enough about this whole. There's such a big debate about the whole, even the term sex work. Some people saying it's sex work, and some people saying, well, it's people actually being pushed into it, forced into it through economic means, and it shouldn't be necessary. So it's one of those things where I can see both sides of the argument. I will say there's hypocrisy coming, obviously, from the Bristol Council, because guess who they're not trying to ban? Male strippers. So, you know, that side's right. But I believe that the women involved in this case who work at the strip club are incredibly relieved, and they feel like this is their opportunity to make money. I feel like it's slightly sad as a society that is a means or the best way for some people to make money. I don't think it's a particularly...
Well, that's right, because society seems to be OK with the existence of strippers unless it's their daughter or their sister.
Yeah.
And the minute it becomes personal, suddenly you develop a moral objection.
And my sister's incredibly unattractive, so I wouldn't...
I don't want to use the word munter, but...
I really hope you haven't got a sister.
She's got a good personality.
No, but she doesn't have a telly, so I'm fine.
Oh, OK, cool.
I mean, Aisling, this is ultimately about what women want to do with their bodies, isn't it?
Yeah, guess what side of the fence I'm on? I think we can probably all guess. I think, who are we to sit down and discuss what another woman or another human wants to do with their body or how they make their money? You know, dancing is an art form. We're going to ban all dancing just because some people choose to take their clothes off while they do it. Let them live and let live. You know, they're not causing any harm. If you want to call it sex work, it's the oldest industry known to mankind, and it's not objectifying women if it's their choice to go there and take their clothes off. That's their choice. That's their empowerment. That they're taking control of their body. And if they want to make money from it, so be it. But who are we to judge?
Also, I mean, is it just me, but isn't sort of stripping quite quaint in a way?
Quaint?
It's almost a bit like it's a really, really old-fashioned form of titillation, isn't it? Compared to the stuff you get online, it's innocent.
Well, absolutely. That's actually a really good point. And honestly, I've been to many a strip club and been totally in awe. What is the difference of having a thong on and not having a thong on, but doing these wonderful art forms with their legs and the upper body strength that you have to have, and good for them.
Choreography,
and all of that.
Costume, all of it.
Yeah, they're not causing any harm, they're not causing any danger, and they're not perhaps...
Oh, this is some early footage of Josh Howie. I don't know if you caught
that. Like, was that a COVID strip club?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, indeed. That was him during the pandemic entertaining the troops.
There were no gigs. I had to make money.
Well, but you don't have to justify it. You don't have to explain it.
I'm a proud woman.
You was out there doing your thing, and that's it.
I thought the mask was a nice touch, Josh, I've got to say.
Some people, they were stopping me in the street afterwards. It just meant that I could be...
By the way, the other person dancing there is Professor Susan Mitchie, the behavioural scientist who I mentioned in my monologue. Now, look, Lizzie, let's talk about this, because others would say, and Josh hinted at it, that this is just a really, really bad look for a modern society. Women taking their clothes off for chauvinistic, sexist men.
I completely agree. I think it should be completely banned. I've got a daughter who's 19 years old.
Nice body.
And it's not... How dare you! She's got a fabulous body. But it doesn't mean that she has to go into a strip club and take her clothes off.
Of course she doesn't. Yeah, but she doesn't have to unless she wants to.
For the pleasure of men. I also have to say that Bristol University and also the University of West England were pro the ban. Why? Because there's so much going on against women all the time. Rapes, assaults, this, that and the other. And guys go in there to get titillated about sex.
Not all guys.
I've got no problem if it was just, if it didn't lead to some kind of sexual arousal. But it does. That's the reason why they go there. And it is humiliating for women. And I think in a modern society, to go into a club to take your clothes off, I'm sorry, I agree. Iceland has banned it, and the Scandinavians are way ahead of us in so many areas. I think it's a really horrible thing. And I think that the women that do it, and I read all the reports today, they tend to be working class women who can't find other employment. And that is awful. Who earns the money? Who earns the money?
But if they're out of the strip club, where do they go? Do they go on the streets?
Who is earning the money at this point? Is it the girls? They're earning a crumb. The people that are really earning the money are the companies, and they are generally run by the guys. They're making the money, not these women. They're being exploited. It's like living in a Victorian time.
They're not being exploited. They're taking control. They're taking control.
They cannot do another job. They are forced.
Of course they can do another job. What are you talking about? Of course they can do another job, but they're choosing to do that job because that's what they want to do.
I read all the reviews.
But you can read all the reviews you want. I know strippers, and I know that they are doing exactly what they want to do, and they're making a load of money, bleep load of money, and they're in control of what they're doing. And actually, not all men go there to be turned on sexually. Some men just go there to meet their friends, and it's never been quite a big deal.
They sometimes bring their wives and girlfriends.
I mean, absolutely. I've been with ex-boyfriends, and the strippers have given me the dance, or they've given him the dance. I think unless you've been into one and you've experienced it, or you know women that do it, I think perhaps you're judging it from the wrong angle.
I do know some women that have done it, and I do know some women that have earned a lot of money about it. In the wider issue, it's not just me, how I'm earning my money. It's about how we impact on the rest of society. And I'm telling you that girls that are going to university now are walking into clubs with like a condom thing over their drinks. They're being harassed all the time. It infuriates me.
But what's that got to do with women choosing to be strippers?
I feel like you're slightly conflating two issues. I 100% agree with you. We were just talking that also I think young men need to literally be educated in primary school about respecting women, respecting women's spaces, and all that stuff. But I don't think that is the same as going to a strip club. I think there are two different things. I think to make this causal link, I don't actually believe is genuinely there.
It is there. It definitely is there. Why? So why do they have to go to a bar with women taking their clothes off?
Because
why?
Well, I mean, that's
Why not? What's so wrong with it?
Yeah,
What is-
Josh, how is it like Page 3, which they got rid of because it was old-fashioned?
Well, I have been a few times on like stag do's and whatever.
Page 3?
No, yeah. But I've been, stag do's and whatever. You sort of dragged along to these places, and to be honest, there's very. I mean, I'm just speaking myself. There's very little sexual titillation at all. I've done it in a very awkward, strange space, and I don't. Even then, I'm looking at other men. It seems like an almost sort of respectful, they're in awe or something, rather than this actual state of seemingly arousal.
And they're goddesses. They're goddesses there to be adored.
And they can't get these girls.
No, they can't get them. They can't touch them. You're not allowed to touch.
It objectifies women.
But
it objectifies them.
But what about the male strippers?
Yeah, but there's male strippers.
What about the Full Monty and the Chippendales?
No, listen, it's a different thing.
Why?
It is a different thing because of the violence that exists against women, the objectification of women.
You won't see any of that in a strip club. You won't see any violence.
But you might see it outside.
But Lizzie's making a point about wider society attitudes to women. Briefly then, what if these women, or some of them, wind up on the streets, possibly prostituting themselves?
But look, I read as much as I could around the subject today. The woman who was from Bristol Council said there are openings within the council. We would like to employ people. If they're going to make a stand, then they also have to help the girls. I'm not against those women. One of them was saying that she was a single mum. It's the only work that she can do.
I think,
but
if the ladies from Bristol want to get out their Bristols, just live and let live.
Yeah, absolutely right. I've got to say, when Lizzie said that there was an opening, I thought, well, that was the point of stripping. There you go. Let's take a look, shall we, at tomorrow's papers. We do nothing if not light and shade on this show. Here are tomorrow's papers, hot off the press, and we'll start with the I newspaper. Truss heads for number 10 as Sunak's tax U-turn fails. New poll for the I shows ex-chancellor failing to make ground despite his new position on tax cuts. However, neither Truss nor Sunak would currently beat Starmer among the wider electorate. Mirror next, Wagatha, the verdict. Win Rooney. Judge rules it was Vardy's account and she did leak stories as Colleen triumphs in a £3 million libel battle. Rebecca Vardy was left devastated after the judge in the Wagatha Christie libel case ruled in favour of Colleen Rooney, wife of England hero Wayne. Rebecca sued Colleen for libel after she was blamed for leaking stories about Colleen's private life. She now faces a massive bill of up to £3 million for legal costs. Media lawyer Matthew Gill said that Rebecca had scored an embarrassing own goal by suing. Nicely done, but will Vardy appeal? VAR. Have a word, ref. Now let's go to the Financial Times. UK PLC cutting ties with China, warns the Confederation of Industry boss. And also on the ball, Lionesses ride a wave of euphoria ahead of the Euro 2022 final. Daily Star now. Rebecca Vardy loses £3 million libel claim. You're not singing anymore, say the Star. Vardy did leak stories on Colleen. Vardy's reputation left in tatters. Colleen, this should never have gone to court. Vardy evidence not credible. Vardy likely deleted WhatsApp evidence. So there you go. Quite a conflict between those two, but something tells me that story will run and run. The Times now. Sunak suffers new blow. Tom Tugendhat backs Truss and hails true Conservative principles of tax cuts. A really big story there in Saturday's Times. Somebody that impressed many in his candidature for the top job. Tom Tugendhat there backing Liz Truss. And, of course, yesterday we had Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, similarly supporting Liz Truss. She appears to have what the Americans call the big mo, or momentum. The Express now, and here is their front page. Truss housing revolution. Leadership contender vows to unlock home ownership for millions. Liz Truss vows to create a new generation of homeowners by delivering a radical overhaul of mortgage rules. The move could unlock the dream of owning a home for half of Britain's 4.4 million renters. The Tory frontrunner wants rental payments included in assessments for mortgages if she becomes PM. She also plans to shred red tape holding back house building and give local communities more say on developments. Well, I think that her manifesto must be a 3-word manifesto. Build, build, build. Sebastian, what have you got for me next? The Telegraph now. Truss plans Thatcherite shake-up of the Treasury. Oh, blimey, it's all about Truss, isn't she? She's definitely got that momentum. Foreign Secretary reveals her intention to seize greater economic powers for Number 10. The Tory leadership frontrunner has vowed to challenge Treasury orthodoxy and is understood to have identified a quarter of key allies who are expected to act as her economic team. Also, cancer testing cut to fund NHS pay rises. The NHS is to scale back plans to increase cancer testing in order to fund staff pay rises as Britain's top expert expresses concern that more cases could be missed. Now we've got the Independent newspaper. Record staff absences pile pressure on the NHS. COVID drives a huge rise in sickness for the struggling NHS. NHS staff absences caused by COVID-19 are now estimated at nearly double the rate of early 2021, depleting care teams by up to 50% and putting lives at risk. Look, this is just my view, but I think we're getting to the point with COVID where if you don't have symptoms but you're testing positive, I think you go to work. I'll discuss that with my panel, but that's my view. I may lose friends with that view, but look, I think it's costing lives at this point. People sat at home twiddling their thumbs, eating banana bread whilst patients die. Daily Mail next. 17 million face hosepipe ban, whilst water firms waste millions of gallons a day. At least 17 million Brits are phasing hosepipe bans after the first wave of restrictions was brought in yesterday. Southern Water announced it was taking drastic action because of parched rivers and soaring demand in one of the driest years on record. Also exclusive in the Daily Mail, Colleen Rooney plots TV revenge after £3 million Wagatha win over Vardy. The drinks are on her. And those are your front pages. And here's where we are, Ashleen Horgan-Wallace. All the momentum seems to be around Liz Truss. It's Truss mania.
Well, I put my trust in Liz, didn't I? See what I did there? And I mean, she is, at this stage, she's giving me Margaret Thatcher vibes with this whole new making it easier to buy. I'm loving that from her. I literally think she's great.
Yeah.
I know you like Rishi.
I've been backing Rishi because I think he knows the economy inside out. He knows the Treasury inside out. He's assiduous. He's a true Brexiteer and has been a Conservative virtually since birth. Liz Truss, an ex-Lib Dem Remainer. But the point is that what she's proposing now is going down brilliantly with the Tory grassroots.
Yeah, she's doing great.
And maybe the wider public. Interesting there that not only have her poll ratings increased in relation to Sunak, but actually as a potential Prime Minister against Starmer as well.
Wow. Well, as I say, I think she's great. And the Margaret Thatcher vibes for me is that selling point.
I think
powerful woman.
I think that this is very interesting about housing because I think it's a really huge problem that we don't have. And, you know, we need to build 360,000 houses a year in order to keep up with
for the next at least 5 years.
Well, absolutely. And, that, you know, it's a really big issue. And I think if she can do this, if she can pull this off, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think that also this whole system of, you know, the credit checks and how the surveyors look at the properties, et cetera, needs to be completely...
It's a racket, isn't it?
It is a racket. And well, also, in the last property crash, the surveyors got their knuckles wrapped because they allowed so many very, very high valuations. Now they're slashing it right down. They're being super, super cautious.
Overcorrected almost?
Overcorrected, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that if Liz can get this through, I'm beginning to... I did think that both of them was kind of about as interesting as the inside of a white fridge at a certain point. But she's kind of coming up with some new ideas. Whether she can do them, let's see, because we're always promised the earth, aren't we? We're always, oh, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to...
But I believe her on this one. I think
hope that she does. I really hope
it's a win-win for everyone if she sticks to her word.
Yeah, and also the house ownership is the sure, fast way that separates people between having a home and owning it to not having one. There's a huge difference between, you know, people who have and people who haven't. I think it's really important, this.
Old Rishi Sunak's having a dog of a campaign, isn't he, Josh? Considering the polished performer that he is, considering it's rumoured that he's been planning this campaign for months, it's just not going well.
No, and I think that it's partly because it's just everybody knows that the majority of the Tory membership want Liz Truss, and there's not really much you can do that. And unfortunately, they see him rightly or wrongly as this like backstabber.
Backstabber, yeah.
They see, you know, they are still, most of them, Boris supporters, or a good chunk of them, enough. And I think it's a shame. But like I said, I still am in a place where I'm like, look, this is a good idea. Absolutely, we need more home ownership. And like you say, people spending all of their money to pay for a mortgage, which goes into someone else's pocket. Let's put that money into their own home, their own property. For sure, if she can do that, that's great. I'm still disappointed. I thought Kemi Badenoch.
Yes.
She was the one, man. She was the one.
Is she the one? Is she the one that got away, Josh?
Absolutely. And I think that Labour, I think the Tories massively shot themselves in the foot. But that's down to the Tory MPs. And the reason I feel so sad about it is because I feel like it really would have forced Labour to up their game. Because it would have sort of instantly wiped out this whole identity politics thing and go, let's actually look at some policies here.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a real wasted opportunity for the whole country.
Agreed.
Yes, I think she'll be back, won't she, Kemi Badenoch?
Oh, she's a smart cookie.
Yeah.
I thought she was great.
I mean, if the Tories lose the next election in 2 years' time, she's a shoo-in for leader, don't you think?
Well, no one's a shoo-in ever, but yes, hopefully that she would.
Because whoever wins this particular leadership battle, if they lose the next election, they're gone, aren't they, Liz?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would have thought so. Yes, definitely.
Because that would be your first big test, and you failed it, and
you're out.
Yeah,
you're out.
Now, Corbyn didn't leave.
No,
Stuck in there, and he just kept on sticking in there.
Yeah, just briefly, Tom Tugendhat in the Times backing Rishi Sunak. That's another influential, candidate.
Very influential.
Ben Wallace, the highly respected Defence Secretary, Defence Minister, he came out in support of Liz Truss yesterday.
But that's because these guys are looking at the polls and going, you know what, I want a job in the future government.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So now I'm going to.
Oh God, you're quite right.
The winner.
You're right.
They're politicians.
Yes, indeed. 17 million face hosepipe ban. I mean, look, this is all right, except, Aisling, that the water firms are wasting tens of millions of gallons a day because they don't fix their pipes.
Agreed.
Have you got a garden? Have you got a hosepipe?
No, but I live in a place...
Sounded obscene, that, didn't it?
I live in a place where there's grounds all around and everywhere.
Have you got a sprinkler?
Dry. There's no communal taps because I wanted to fill a paddling pool the other day.
But no, that's, I mean, it's not going to go down with people who want to water their geraniums, is it, this hosepipe ban?
I don't know. It depends how many geraniums they've got, surely.
I've got a hosepipe.
Have you? And
how big is it,
Are you not afraid to use
Very.
it? Will you? Listen, my favourite thing is flouting hosepipe bans. That's my hobby. The minute the government says I can't do something, I'm tempted.
It is a bit rich coming from water companies when you realise how filthy the rivers are and how badly run they are, and they're polluted and they're making a load of money, and then, but we have to stop, we can't water our roses. I wouldn't flout the rule. I would obey it.
Yeah.
If it came in.
I wouldn't. I'm a rule breaker. I'd be out there with a hose pipe. I'd actually go and buy a hose pipe just on purpose.
I'd go and buy a garden.
Yeah.
And then a hose pipe.
Agatha Christie, the verdict. Lots of my viewers couldn't care less about this. What they possibly could care about is, Josh, wasting court time and a lot of money. In fairness to Colleen Rooney, she has said on receiving this victory that it should never have gone to court. But is it a scandal that it did?
No, I think, someone wanted to prove the truth. They wanted to get out to what happened. Of course, it's a somewhat frivolous thing, but at the same time, it's quite of the time. It's got social media, it's got all these different elements to it, and reputations are at risk.
Yeah.
I've worked with Colleen, and she's a nice lady. She's a nice lady, but I can't help it. And she did say many times that we should sort this out. I think 3 times she said we should sort this out. It's really vacuous, though, girls. These women, These women are in such a position of power in terms of their influence, in terms of their visibility, that they could use that for good. They could work with charities. I'm sure that a lot of them do, but it seems really vacuous.
Well, it was Vardy. It was Vardy that took it to court, and I think that she wanted to prove something that was impossible to prove because the stories were sold from her account. I know people are probably not interested, but I'm team Colleen all the way, and justice was served.
Is it a grotesque waste, though?
Yeah,
I mean, like, you know, is it an example of, you know, these rich celebrities just throwing money around like it's Monopoly money?
Yeah, I
think to have little, you know, court battles.
Yeah, it's just like a girly spat, but then at the same time, you have to remember the impact that selling stories on someone has on them and their family. So I can understand why Colleen was so upset, because it can be really detrimental to your well-being, your mental well-being and all of that. So...
But she could have dealt with it privately.
Who?
Colleen could have also dealt with it. I'm team Colleen as well, because I think...
Yeah, but maybe she was due on, you know, and then she just started tweeting about, because I would have done the same thing.
I'm a team hosepipe. yeah.
Are you? How big's your hosepipe?
Doesn't work.
By the way, Aisling, old Rebecca, she's going to be in the doghouse with hubby, isn't she?
I mean, that's an expensive
He's got to play at least,
fight.
what, 2 games of football to get that back?
He won't be happy, though. It will be a strain on their marriage, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, I would be like, listen, you idiot, what have you done? You've made such a fool of yourself.
You're a really good marriage counsellor.
She's going to have to go down to Bristol and get the Bristols out to pay that bill.
Yeah, exactly right. There's an opening in Bristol. I've seen it with my own eyes. Lots more to come before we go. Another game show based around the news. This time, celebrity dogs. Can you spot them? And next, should we build on the green belt? See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
So far tonight, we've heard what Rishi Sunak would do to tackle energy bills, but what about the housing problem, which came up in the papers? He's under more pressure from Tory members for a desperate need to build houses. And one discussion is whether to build on the green belt. He says he'll protect it. It's the area which currently covers 12.4% of England. What do we think? Should we solve the housing crisis by building on the green belt? Josh Howie?
Yeah, I think that this is just him Guess who's got all the houses?
Exactly.
You know, that's why the house prices, certainly in a place like London or wherever, is as high as it is, because we're not building into the green belt. He's going, hey guys, living in all the conservative areas, we're going to keep those house prices nice and high for you. It's pathetic.
I think it's a sick joke for young people who are desperate to get on the housing ladder. Yes, you can make it easier to buy a property, but what we need, Ashleen, is more properties. We need to build, build, build.
I agree, but I think it's a shame that we have to build on Greenbelt, but until the very last minute, and I think we're probably at the very last minute now, so it is time to build.
And also, a lot of Greenbelt, it's not exactly sort of meadows with butterflies, is it?
No, it isn't. It's not. There'll always be an England. It's not like
It's not the Sound of Music.
No, it isn't. It's a misnomer. It was developed in the 1940s. It's not relevant to today. We need to build, and everybody clinging on to this sort of idea of Greenbelt. Everybody needs a house. A lot of young people need houses. As we said, 360,000 per year for the next 5 years. Build on the green belt. A lot of it isn't green fields.
Too right. Well, let's crack on now, because it's that point in the evening in which we play a topical game show. That's right, it's time for the Great British Game Show. Do you want the sting, Tom? No, let's crack on. An adorable dog has gone viral on social media for always looking surprised. Belle was born with having a deficiency. Muscles in her head stretched back, which makes his face look permanently surprised. Luckily, her condition doesn't cause her any pain, but she regularly needs to have eye drops. In honour of this gorgeous pooch who we all love, we're going to play a game of Who Let the Dogs Out? My panellists and you at home must guess who these famous doggos are. Let's start with dog number one.
Snoopy's sidekick.
Yeah, Scrappy.
It is Scrappy-Doo, who I think we can agree was very annoying.
Snoopy. What's his name?
Scrappy.
Scrappy. You had Scooby.
Yeah,
for me.
Scooby, thank you.
Scooby's a legend. Scrappy, very annoying. Josh?
Lassie.
There you go. Lassie, come home. OK, how about this dog? Who's this from?
Oh, Churchill.
Churchill dog from the insurance company. OK, how about this dog? Well done, for the Beethoven movie. Josh has watched a lot of children's films. Yes. It's weird, he's got no kids.
Wait, what?
How about this?
Something About Mary, or one of those movies, one of those dogs. It was like it was in one of those Farley.
Cameron Diaz, Ben Stiller.
Something About Mary.
That's such
well
a
done.
fun movie.
Oh, I see you mumbled it. That's very good.
Sorry,
Puffy, well done. You get the points, Josh. Puffy from Something About Mary. How about this dog?
Oh, the Andrex.
No, it's not. Jennifer Aniston.
Marcy or one of that.
Marley and me.
Marley.
Although it could easily have been the... I might give you a half point for the Andrex.
Thank you.
How about this? It's a children's book and also cartoon series.
Oh.
Seen it, but can't remember.
All three dogs.
Oh, yeah, there's three dogs.
Polly, our newsreader, is yelling the answer. Polly Middlehurst. It is Clifford, the big red dog, as she gets her bulletin ready. How about our next famous dog?
Oh, it's
American
Dad.
It's the other one, Family Guy.
Oh.
Brian Griffin. How about let's power through a few more if we can.
Oh my God, Toto.
Okay, how about this one?
Lassie.
No, not Lassie. Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp. How about another cartoon classic?
Toy Story.
Yes, and do you name the dog? An extra point for the name of the dog?
Slinky.
Slinky dog, well done. Oh dear, Josh Howie smashed this one.
The
Legally Blonde.
But I can't remember the...
Bruiser. And last but not least, one of my favourite stories from
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, that's right. It is the Greyfriars Bobby, whose owner died and he followed into his grave every day. And it's a wonderful story. Thanks to my amazing panel. You for watching. I'm back tomorrow at 9. Stick around because I'm doing headliners.
Hello, welcome to your forecast with me, Luke Mile. Now, as we go through the next few days, we will see some rain at times across the UK, but not all of us will see that rain, and it stays fairly warm and humid. Now, you can see the reason we're seeing some rain is a weather front crossing Scotland as we go through Saturday, another feature pushing its way in through central parts of the UK on Sunday. So for some places, some welcome rain in the forecast. Through the rest of this evening and overnight, though, we keep the clearer skies across southern areas, but elsewhere we'll see thicker cloud and pretty wet across Scotland, northern England and Northern Ireland, with some heavy bursts of rain pushing through during the night. A lot of low cloud, mist and murk over the hills. but it is a very warm night in places, 15 or 16 degrees, the lowest temperatures. As we start tomorrow morning then, some sunshine across southeastern areas first thing. That turns a bit hazier through the day. Elsewhere though, thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain, some wet weather pushing its way into the northwest of England through the day. That's where the